Hello and welcome to the Here For It podcast with Chris and Melissa. We're two sisters that are here to bring you real and relatable topics that we hope will encourage and inspire you, cause you to think, laugh, and grow. Thank you for being a part of this journey. And if you like something you hear, please remember to share it. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's topic. I was born Melissa Camille Strickland on March 9th, 1975 in Cleveland, Ohio, to my mom Janelle Strickland and father James Lee Strickland. I am the oldest of three girls, and I was the only child for about 5 years until my sisters were born. Growing up, I loved my parents very much. I recall them being together all the time and loving and liking each other. They played lots of Scrabble and bowled on leagues and won many trophies. And I remember them going to cabarets and watching Greek mythology movies. My mom was loving and very kind. I remember her cooking all the time and making food for us and for my dad and his friends that came over to play chess. She was very pretty too. She made up songs. She tickled me and sung Sleepy Train every night before I went to bed. She made my day. My dad was like fire. He was exciting and cool. He had swag. He loved to go to the club Bells on the Circle, drink and smoke weed, go to the bar and dance. But he also loved to go to museums and the library and read and write poetry and visit family and friends. I was closest to my dad. Reason being is that for some reason as a little girl, I just gravitated towards him. I got to know his good qualities before the true wrath set in. And I spent more time with him basically because my mom always worked and he never did. I never knew until I got older that it should have been the other way around. He and I played records and albums together. He played dolls with me, carried me on his shoulder. We rode the train. He took me to my cousin's house. He bought me rabbit coats and diamond earrings, and we ate lots of junk food, especially Doritos and Reese Cups. And he was a great storyteller. He had stories for days. And with that said, I could say the first 5 years of my life were very great. Well, what and where is the trauma? What happened that changed things? My baby sister Crystal was born 5 years after me. I was so happy to have a baby sister. I loved her so much. But the birth of my baby sister was critical because while she did not cause the trauma, her birth, in my mind, was the marker as a child as to when the trauma began. In the same year she was born, my mom found God and became a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. We started going to church, we started keeping the Sabbath, and that was when my mom and dad began drifting apart. And my dad was not ready to make any changes or to become a Christian at all. And the gap between them grew wider by the minute. And as my parents drifted apart, the arguments became more intense. And my dad's alcoholism went through the roof when he drank. It made him mean, hostile, irrational, angry, rageful. And it got worse each year. In short, that is where my trauma began at the age of 5 and continued into adulthood. In 1983, he finally left. Those years and many years after were very hard and difficult for me, my mom, and my sisters. And what made it worse was in spite of it all, I loved him. And I loved him hard until his death. He was definitely my first love and my very first heartbreak. All right, everybody. So let's take 30 seconds to soak all of that in. I know that was a lot of information. And I guess you can tell today we're going to talk about childhood trauma. And today we're going to focus on my trauma.
Well, before we even start to talk about childhood trauma, I know it's a buzzword now. I love that in 2022, mental health awareness is on the rise. We've watched documentaries like Kanye's documentary and just various things happening, and I just love that, especially the African American community, we're starting to just like take mental health seriously, talk about it, that kind of thing. So some of the information that we share, you guys may already know. Some of it you may not know. So we, again, we're here to share, to inspire, to grow together. So when we think of the term childhood trauma, it's basically defined as adverse experiences that take place during your childhood. Now we know that between the ages of 0 and 5, your character, your personality, who you are, who you become as an adult, those years are very critical. So when it comes to adverse childhood experiences, there was a study done in the 1990s by the CDC. They interviewed children and asked them about various experiences they'd had, these ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and they were able to connect them to serious mental and physical health outcomes. Wow. They realized that children who had experienced certain things in certain categories, and Melissa will tell you about those categories, that when they grew up, their health wasn't the way that it should be. They were involved in risky behaviors. And the more ACEs or adverse childhood experiences a person had, it cuts 20 years off of your life. And I thought that was devastating.
That's deep.
And so Melissa, tell us a little bit about those categories and what types of situations or scenarios fit under those categories.
Okay. So when we started to do this podcast and thinking about childhood trauma, I will tell you that it really opened up a world of information to us as we looked into ourselves. But there are 7 categories that ACEs can fall under. One of them is abuse. That's mental abuse. That's physical abuse, verbal abuse, domestic violence. All of that falls under the category of abuse. There's mental health, and that's the mental health of your parents.
Yeah, or your caregiver.
Or your caregiver. Yeah, your parents or your caregiver, whoever raised you or in the house who was to care for you. And that could be depression, anxiety, being bipolar, or any type of mental issue that would affect that caregiver's care of you in raising you. Then there's neglect, hunger, food, water, shelter. It's the basic things that we need to survive as children that we depend on our caregivers for. Risky behaviors, that's drug or alcohol, parents that sold drugs, parents that were into prostitution or selling their bodies, or any type of it could be robbing and theft, any type of risky behavior. If you were in that environment, that's another area of ACEs. Serious injury, it could be a car accident or some type of trauma that happened that caused, physical harm to you or your body. That's serious injury or serious illness. Your parents could have been sick. Or in the hospital a lot, or having physical ailments that really impaired their ability to take care of you as a kid. And then school issues, either you're the bully or being bullied. So a lot of things that we experience as children or growing up can fall under these categories in many different forms. So we're going to talk about that today.
Before we begin, we do want to say that when you talk about adverse childhood experiences, sometimes your caregivers get exposed, right? And so our intent is not to necessarily put anyone out there, but what I realize, I believe in our community, is that a lot of times we don't share for fear of, putting someone else out there, exposing a family member or whatever the case may be. Or we don't share because we know that we start talking about our trauma, we take that Band-Aid off of that wound, then you have to deal with it. And if you don't have the tools and the resources to deal with it, it feels more comfortable to just say,
keep it in.
I'm not going to deal with it. But the truth is, you'd be surprised when you start talking about things that you've been through, that there are so many others that may share your same story or a similar story, and that you guys can heal from it, talk through it, that kind of thing. So again, we are not doing this to put anybody out there, but we are sharing our story so that we can overcome, to help others overcome. That is the intent here.
And just to be, I second that, Crystal, just to be an encouragement to you to know that, as our parents were coming up, they may not have an identity called ACEs to say, this is what this is, or this is trauma, or this is what I experienced. Yeah, I'm so glad that we have information available to us, YouTube, counselors, doctors, and resources that can help us in our lives to even begin talking about it and having the dialogue and to begin to heal and work through some of those traumas. So, today we're going to focus on me, and I'm here to talk about it. I just want you to know that I love my parents. very dearly. My dad is no longer with us. My mom is here. We love her dearly, and we're all working through all the issues that we have. But this is really to get you guys to start talking to and start the healing and start working with your family. So we hope that you get something from
Put it up on the screen. We talked about those 7 areas of adverse childhood experiences. And so, Melissa, after hearing your story, it sounds like the first 5 years of your life, for the most part, were really good. And then when it got towards the end, it got a little crazy.
Yeah. So
tell us more about what happened when I was born. Because I feel like you was blaming me.
I promise. I wasn't blaming you.
I'm kidding.
It wasn't Crystal. It's just that when you're a little kid, you think about things in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
And when you were born, I was so happy, but I noticed that my parents were not. And that's the first time I noticed that things just started falling apart, and things were going in a different direction. So for me, I was happy, but
So tell me about the categories. Out of those 7, what categories, let's just start with one of them, does your trauma fall under? Would you say?
All right, so I would say the first category would be fear. So you guys heard that my father was a alcoholic, and he drank alcohol from the time that I was young, but it wasn't really noticeable. But when the problems came, people drink to drown their problems away, or they drink to just cope with things. And at the time, we didn't know what that was. But his alcoholism caused him to be very, very rageful, very, very verbally abusive, and just mean. And it changed him. It was almost like a complete change. Some people drink and they get silly. Some people drink and they get sleepy.
Yeah.
But he was rageful.
I think it's crazy. You know how they call it? I never knew till I got to the South. Wine and spirits.
That's what it is.
Now that's a whole fact right
there. That means that we know that this stuff has a spirit in it, or that it is a spirit. And when I tell you a spirit took over, it was a spirit from the time that I was a little girl that terrified me, because his rage and his anger, you think about being 4, 5, 6 years old, to see someone that you love, or that you had a great relationship, that to just be mean, not only to the people that are in your home, but to you.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So he was mean to you?
He was mean to me.
So give me some examples.
Okay, all right. So I know this is a serious Oh gosh, right.
Okay. It's not funny.
It's not funny, but all right. So I was just telling Chris a story, right?
Okay.
So when I was a little girl, I was really aloof, and my dad would say, "Go clean your room." Well, when I was little, I would go back to the room, and I would start playing for hours. I would come out of the room, totally forget that my dad told me to clean the room. Now, of course, he had a reason to be mad, right? Or upset with me. But I was a little kid. Little kids forget. They get distracted. They don't know how to get back on target. Yeah. And I would come out the room, and then he would go to the room and say, "What did I tell you to do?" And he would be so mad, but he would be fussing at me as if I was a nigga on the street.
Yeah, like a whole adult.
Like a whole adult.
Yeah.
And it scared me. It terrified me so bad that I would stand there and just look and wouldn't have any idea of what he was talking about. I didn't know that he told me. I couldn't think about him saying, "Go clean your room."
Yeah.
Or what he told me to do.
So the fear would paralyze you and take over, and you couldn't even remember the task.
I couldn't even remember my name at that point in time.
Can you imagine doing that to a 3, 4, 5-year-old?
Think about your little kid.
Yeah. And
terrifying them so bad. But the thing is that he found pleasure in it.
So
and that was the difference.
Was he intoxicated when he would do that? Do you know?
I think he would have been drinking.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But, I didn't see him drinking all the time.
Right.
But my dad visited the bar a lot. You know, I didn't see like bottles all over the house. But even sometimes, I'm going to be honest, I don't think he was drinking. I think he was acting in a way that was done to him.
Okay.
In how you discipline a kid.
Okay.
Or how he was done growing up without having parents. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But it was so mean. And it was so different. He completely changed with just me not cleaning my room. And then the horrible part is I would be standing there, not able to respond to him to say, you told me to clean my room and I didn't. I couldn't remember anything. And when I would walk, he said, I told you to go in there and clean your room. I'm saying it nice. He would hit me in my head on the way past him to go to my room. And I would be in my room sobbing and crying and cleaning my room. And I was afraid. I was always afraid to mess up.
Yeah.
I was afraid to forget. So I would spend all my time trying to remember, what did Daddy tell me? And he probably didn't even tell me to do anything. Yeah.
Where was Mommy?
I don't know where she was. I don't remember her being around or saying, Jimmy, you know.
Yeah. Maybe
don't do her like
work,
that.
Do you think? Like, is it maybe times where because you said you spent a lot of time with him not knowing
that
he should have been working?
Yeah, I mean, my mom did work more so. I just remember at that point in time, she might have been at work, but she wasn't there.
Yeah.
You know, she wasn't there. I don't remember her, you know, during those times, coming in to my rescue. So I would just sob on my own. And that's how I learned not to share my pain with anyone. I would just deal with it on my own.
Just keep it.
Yeah. Never apologize. Never said I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So that was fear.
Yeah.
You don't think about it until you talk about it. Which, if somebody screams at me or hollers at me today, I go all the way back to that place. I don't know what you're saying to me. I cannot answer your questions.
Wow.
I am defending myself on the inside because I know that a blow is coming, or I think a blow is coming. In addition to that, I can't have a conversation with you, and I just go into protective mode of myself.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's really traumatic. Caused fear in me, but it also toughened me too. Because at a certain point, I just was like, you know what? I'm not gonna go through this no more. We're gonna fight.
Yeah.
As I became older.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know about that.
Okay, so you talked about the fear. What other ones kind of pulled out to you in the categories?
So along with that fear came the verbal abuse. My dad had no, and y'all know I love my dad. So, you know, God rest his soul. But I want you guys to know that when hurt people do really hurt people. Yeah. And so when you know his story, you understand his story, you can kind of have empathy or, you know, think about where he was coming from and how he grew up.
Everybody has a story.
Yeah. And
literally.
So I understand, even though it wasn't right, this is just the facts of what happened and the effects that it had on my life. Yeah. And so it was verbal abuse. I mean, my dad, from the time I was 5 on, I was every name under the book. There was no shielding me from, I don't talk to my daughter like that. Right. Or I don't talk to my girls like that. Or my wife like that. It's whatever it is that he thought or would say or would think, that's what you were. Yeah. And that's what he said to you, and that's how he made you feel. And when you try to stand up for yourself or take up for your sisters or take up for your mom, it was like, it's on. You know, when you talk about that verbal abuse, if somebody, I'm gonna be honest, if somebody were to call me a B today, I'm like, that's all you got? Yeah. Really? You trying to hurt my feelings? That's nothing. Yeah. What else? You trying to fight me? You
like,
trying to?
I need something better than that.
I need something better than you. Got to come better than that, because that's not gonna take me down. I'm not about to fight you because you called me that. But what that does, when you accept that verbal abuse, from a child, it is you accept that you're low. and you accept that maybe I deserve this, or maybe I am a B.
Yeah.
Maybe I am worthless. And then when other people that aren't your caregivers try to belittle you or tell you that you're worthless in different ways, you begin to believe that as well.
Yeah.
So I began to think small of myself. I did have very low self-esteem from a very little girl on. So whereas I'm this bright and happy, smiley person, nobody knew that because I was afraid to talk.
Wow.
I was afraid to conversate with people. I was afraid of conflict. I avoided it. And so, in school, I was this shy girl that sucked her finger all day because on the inside, I'm feeling insecure and unprotected.
Wow.
That fear and that verbal abuse was just an early part of my life that carried on, into adulthood today. That's why I feel insecure, and I don't know why I'm feeling insecure. Even in growing up, nobody ever said to me, in my first years, I described my dad being like all loving and my mom being loving. But when the problems came in their relationship, I was neglected.
Yeah. So neglect was one of them.
Neglect was another one.
So what type of is neglection a word?
Neglection.
What type of neglection was it?
Yeah.
No, seriously, was it like your food, water, shelter? Was it your emotional needs?
Yeah.
What kind of neglect would you say?
Yeah, so it wasn't the physical things. Like, I had food. I mean, I would wake up in the morning and make myself sugar sandwiches and stuff.
Sugar sandwiches are good.
Sugar and mayonnaise sandwiches is good.
They are all right.
They may not have made breakfast, but it was in the refrigerator.
Gotcha.
Not that. I had food, I had water, I had shelter.
Yeah.
But I did not have emotional support.
Okay.
So when my dad would hit me upside the head when it was time for me to clean my room and I forgot, and I would be hurt in my room, no one ever consoled me. No one ever said, "I'm so sorry, baby," or my dad never came and hugged me and said, "I'm sorry, D.
Yeah.
I put you through that." I don't ever remember him apologizing to me at all as a kid. So there was no apology, and so my emotions were neglected all the time. So if I felt insecure as a kid, you don't know how to say I felt insecure.
Right.
You just sitting there like, I don't know.
Right. Just feeling those feelings and not knowing what they are.
And not knowing what they are and what to do with them. And my mother never said, "Hey, how are you feeling?"
Yeah.
Because she was at a point where she was going through, the same thing maybe that we were going through.
Absolutely.
And so she wasn't able to be there emotionally for us. So my emotions over time hardened so hard that I don't have any emotions.
Wow.
Or the emotions that I feel, I don't feel safe in sharing them. How I feel, I don't feel safe telling you because you're going to not take care of them. You're not going to,
And that's, we're talking about that dishonesty and that kind of thing.
That's where it comes from.
That's the root of that.
The root of that is like, I'm not telling you how everything is great. Or like I just said, I don't say anything at all. But the art of apologizing and being sorry and talking through it, when my mom and dad would have arguments, mommy and daddy would have arguments, nobody ever came to us and said, "We're sorry you had to see that. We're sorry we put you through that. We're so sorry. Let me make it better. Let me make you feel good."
Or how did it make you feel?
How did it make you feel? And so it's so important, guys, when you're having, couples fight, whatever it is that you go through, make sure you do a wellness check on your kids.
Follow up.
Yes.
And it may feel embarrassing.
Yes.
But follow up because they see, they hear, they know, and it can be damaging. So
and you can just be going on in your life, trying to deal with yourself, but your kids are involved too.
They are victims. You mentioned that in your story that the separation and all the problems and the trauma came because your mom found. I said your mom. She's my mom too.
Right.
But for this interview, she's your mom.
Yes.
So tell me what happened when your mom found God. Like what happened?
Yeah, so when mommy found God, it was great for her. Because whatever as an adult that she was going through in life, it was a point where her and daddy started to drift apart, and she really needed something to hold on to ground her, to keep her, and to help her through that. And so finding God was just the best thing in her life. And
it's the best thing in anybody's life.
Yes,
Find them if you haven't.
In love. Okay, find them. Yes.
Sorry.
Jesus,
I can't finish.
All right, so it was finding God
Yeah.
is when mommy and daddy started to drift apart.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a bad thing when she found God. It was a great thing, but mom was so gung-ho in, she wasn't waiting for nobody. It was like, I need Christ in my life. I need this. I love this message, and whatever they tell me to do, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm getting baptized. I'm becoming a call porter. I'm going to sing. I'm going to go pass out tracts. I'm going to get my... So she was
in gathering.
She was in gathering. We was with her. We was at the nursing home.
Everything.
We was at prayer meeting.
Everything.
She immediately put me in Rhema.
Whitley Phipps.
The
Stylistics
Wright.
went out.
Yes.
Whitley Phipps and Eleanor Wright entered the building.
We got rid of all the records. So you got to think when you're in a relationship and somebody does an abrupt change and you're not ready for that change, you're left behind. And it's either you grow with them or you grow apart.
Absolutely.
But I would say that in your relationships, if at some point you come to some enlightenment and change and your partner is not there, do not push them. Do not tell them that they're going to hell. Do not be angry with them because they're not where you are at the same time.
I just wanted to jump in. There's literally a Bible verse that says, stick with your husband, your spouse. Because how do you know that your lifestyle won't convert them?
Exactly.
Not your words.
Yes.
Your lifestyle.
It's your lifestyle and how you treat them and how you show that love to say this is a better way of life.
Yeah.
And I think that, mom didn't beat daddy over the head, but because her change was so abrupt, there was no window to
no transition.
No transition. He was like, wait a minute.
She said, turn the TV off.
It's Sabbath. And Saturday morning was cartoon.
He said, what is Sabbath?
Yeah.
What's that? Turn the TV off.
It would be so bad. Mom would turn the TV off on Friday evening. Do you know how hard that is to transition to?
It is.
On Friday evening to Saturday, and Daddy would come turn the TV on. And back then, it was the TV with the knobs that came out, and then the knob would be off. The knob would be off.
Yes.
And the thing is that as kids, we wanted to watch TV. So we sat there like, leave it on. But it was just, it was an abrupt change. And that abrupt change just caused them to drift apart. And as I saw my parents drifting apart, for me, I was the love child. My parents loved each other. They hung out. They bowled together. We played Scrabble together. They listened to the same music. They did everything together. And so I felt kind of an abandonment, or it felt like that separation that was there, that was very hard for me coming up. And everything happened when Crystal was born. I feel so bad. She was the sweetest baby. I loved her. But it was around that time my mom found God in 1980, and that was the year she was born. And so Crystal was born into a different time than I was, and she'll talk about that a little bit more. But not only that, but it was the alcoholism. It became domestic violence. It became verbal abuse. My dad eventually left, and that was abandonment for me. And I'm getting emotional, because that was it was 1983. I was in the 3rd grade when my dad left. I missed him. And I missed him so much that I was nauseated and sick. And so I would get up because I thought maybe I had to throw up. And I would lay by the toilet. But it would happen every night. The thing is that My mom didn't know. You didn't know. Nobody knew. And then when it was time to get up for school, I would take a shower, wash up, and go to school and come home and do the same thing every night.
Wow.
Every night.
How long would you say?
I would say it was for about a good 3 to 4 months. I would do that. I didn't know to pray. And so, you know, we talked about my mom finding God or whatever, but I just didn't know where my help, I didn't know how to get help. And I didn't tell my mom, and my mom never asked me how I felt, and nobody ever said, Melissa, are you okay?
Yeah.
And I wasn't.
Yeah.
You gotta just tap into your kids, because you don't want them to deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm just thinking about the hundreds and thousands and millions of kids whose parents, they separate. Saying that, but the kids are too.
And it's like, do you stay together so they can see the fighting, the arguing, and the not getting along?
Right.
Or do you separate?
Right.
I think the biggest thing is, you know, sometimes we as parents, we get so caught up in what we're going through in ourselves that we forget that they have feelings too.
Yeah.
Because they're playing and they're still going. You know, kids are resilient.
Yeah.
And I am probably one of the most resilient people that you'll meet.
Absolutely.
But I will say it is about the kids and making sure that they're talking about it, that you're talking to them about it, that you are letting them know that you love them.
Yes.
No one ever told me that I was beautiful when I was a kid. No one ever told me I was cute. And it wasn't because they didn't love me, but they were so caught up in their own thing that I was just always feeling ugly all the time.
Yeah.
And then when people tell you ugly, you be like, well, dang, I'm ugly. It's confirmed. First they said it, then my mama ain't say
My
nothing.
mama ain't
say that I was cute.
I must be ugly.
Yes, but no one ever said, I'm sorry, or you're beautiful, or I love you, or I never could come to them and tell them, hey, I'm getting picked on at school.
Yeah.
You know, and I wasn't bullied, but I remember because I was so insecure, at the time that the transition began to happen, because my parents were absent a little bit in my life, I just didn't have the best care.
Okay.
You know, my hair was always all over my head. I did not have a girly bedroom. There were things that I wanted, and I didn't have the best clothes. I didn't have the things that made me feel cute like a little girl. I just didn't have those things, and I knew that. But I was always feeling down and insecure, you know, from my dad. And all I wanted to do was love him. Like I still loved him.
Isn't that crazy?
It's so crazy how you love. I was like, but I just love you, so don't treat me like that.
Be good to me.
Be good to me. Please change, so we can read books together.
Go back to
So
how
we
it
can
used
go
to
back
be.
to how it used to be.
Yeah.
And I spent all my entire life trying to get that from my dad. Even up until his death, I was feeling like, I love you, Daddy. Talk to me. Let me take care of you. Let me make it better. What did I do wrong? You know, and those things stem from a child. That's where my trauma began. It manifested throughout my relationships. You know, not loving myself, being in relationships that I shouldn't have been in, allowing people to put me down, and not doing anything about it, not knowing how to make friends, not being social, afraid to step out and do something new because I thought that I wasn't good enough or I didn't have the support. Things I know that I talk about, you know, Crystal is my sister or whatever, but I didn't want her to feel what I felt, so I took care of her. And that's one of those things where they talk, there's in ACEs also, they talk about having to be the parent and the child.
Yeah.
When your parents are going through like risky behaviors or whatever, but I was the parent to Crystal and to myself, and I pretty much.
And you were a child.
Yeah, and I was a kid.
Yeah.
So as a kid, and even when Jennifer came along, I was still mom or I was still dad. And I raised them and felt that I had to protect them. I didn't recognize that I had childhood trauma until I got married. So that's 2 years in. And you know, when you're married, things come out. things come from the surface because there's a lot of things that are dug up.
People trying to become one.
Yeah, trying to become one person, and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't know that I had this trauma. I didn't know I was like this.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I know God. I've been singing on the praise team since 1990. I'm fixed. One of the things that came about, I've had bad relationships. I've had separation anxiety. When I was in 8th grade, I had a boyfriend in 8th grade. It was my first boyfriend. And coming up in elementary, I wasn't the girl that was chosen. I was not the most attractive because my hair wasn't done. No beads, I ain't had no bobos or nothing.
You had no beads? You
weren't
popping?
I wasn't popping no beads or nothing.
Oh, so sorry.
I had rubber bands. I had red rubber bands in my hair off the newspaper. Y'all saw some of those pictures. Show y'all.
Off the newspaper?
Yes, off the newspaper. You know how Daddy used to collect the rubber bands and put them on the door?
I'm sorry. That was funny.
I'm sorry. That's how my hair. Listen, anyway, so I didn't have boyfriends in elementary. I wasn't the girl that was picked. When we played Boys Chase the Girls on the playground, I would be running. And nobody would be running after me. That is so funny. And I'm running.
No chasing.
And then I would just run to the fence and be like, got my girls.
My goose.
I remember that.
Goose, what's goose? The fence is goose.
What is goose? Got my goose.
That is very funny.
No, nobody was running after me in elementary school. But so, when I got to 7th grade, I had a crush on this boy that was really cute. He was so cute, but the main thing I liked about him is that he was smart. He was smart and he was independent. And he could do anything. So one day we went on this, we went to the Rama picnic. We go to the picnic and we start to take a walk on a trail. He was like, I'm going to be a guide. I'm going to tell us where we got to go. I'm going to get this stick. You get this stick. This is the way we're going to go. And he led the whole class on this trip. I was like, you was mine. I was like, I choose you this day. Choose you this day because you is smart. And then when we got our test scores back from the Iowa test, he scored 12th grade in all. I was like, oh, so you know, for you is the one for me. So I like intelligence and smart. And that's why I married my husband. He's very intelligent, very smart. But I say that to say, he was the first person. He did not like me. He was not checking for me. He was like running. In 8th grade, I had a jerry curl. And my jerry curl used to drip on my collar and in the shirt.
But all jerry curls drip.
Oh,
but it's okay.
I mean, it dripped. And it was short. But I had a jerry curl and I was excited because I had some hair. But anyway, to make a long story short, he gave me some attention and asked me to be his girlfriend. And he loved me with my jerry curl, with my dark skin. I was poor. We were poor. We were going through it. And he loved me as much as you can love somebody in the 8th grade. And I loved him too. There was no sex involved. There was no kissing involved. There was nothing. But what he used to do was make jokes and read me stories. And he would read me stories and I would listen to the stories and we would talk on the phone. But that was the first time that somebody had given me any type of attention since my dad left. The same way. My dad used to read me stories.
Right.
My dad used to make jokes.
Right.
My dad was smart and independent and intelligent. And so this was the first person that mirrored my dad in the good way.
Yeah.
And so, you know, people used to be like, well, why y'all so in love? It's only, you shouldn't like him.
Right.
He shouldn't like you. You know, this kind of thing. It wasn't about that. I was a little girl.
Yeah.
I was a little girl that somebody was showing me love that had been taken from me.
Yeah.
And so it hurt when he broke up with me. He should have. It was like 8th grade.
You gotta break up.
You gotta break up. What are we gonna do? Get married? We wasn't ready to get married.
Yeah.
But because I had been abandoned as a young girl, I could not handle the abandonment of him moving on with his life and going to high school.
Yeah.
And it was so bad that I was sick all over again for a whole summer.
Wow.
You know, and nobody did anything.
Yeah. Wow.
Nobody said,
what's wrong with you?
or they looked at me like, why she like him like that? She must be nasty.
Right.
You know what I mean? She must be this or that. No, I was going through at the time
Separation
anxiety, man. It just it hurt. And so that abandonment made me feel like, you can be my man, I can be with you, but don't leave me.
Yeah.
Don't leave me because I can't do it by myself. Don't leave me because I've been left before and I need you to validate me and make me feel pretty when I don't feel pretty.
Yeah.
And so that thing right there in my life, when I look back on it, like, I didn't stop loving that guy till I was 26.
Yeah. No, listen. It makes sense.
It makes sense. So, but it was the last thing that I had to. It was what I knew that was similar to what was good.
Yeah.
And while it seemed not natural, it was just a reaction of my adverse
childhood.
My
Your
childhood.
adverse childhood.
Yeah, experiences. So from then on, I'm gonna tell y'all, from that experience in losing, I didn't become promiscuous. I was never promiscuous, but I had low self-esteem. And low self-esteem means that I'll go with you even if you talking to somebody else. Or if I'm going with you and you're not treating me right, I'm just gonna stay. Because I'm just gonna be with you, because that's what, you know. And so I've been in relationships where I've been treated mean, where I've been dogged, where I've been hurt. And so I just made a decision not to love anymore. And I don't got a love thing in my body. And I want that. So that's one of the traumas that I'm dealing with, is how to love and bring back what was, you know, beaten out of me or taken away from me. Yeah, it was stolen. I want all of it back. I want it all back.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
It's loaded, and I bet that there's more, you know, more stories, more situations. But you know, they talk about your ACEs score, right? And they say, I think I said it already, if you have 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, then, you know, your life can be bad, you know what I'm saying? Or there are some things that you're definitely going to have to work through. So I just appreciate you being transparent and even saying, hey, to this day, it's certain things that you can track all the way to your childhood. And that you are working through. And I think working on it, or just even knowing it, is half the battle. Like, okay, now that I know these things, you know, you can't heal what ain't revealed.
Exactly.
You know, I hate cliches, but that's a true one. That's a good one. Yeah. So just knowing and finding out and tracing your current behaviors to what had happened when you were younger. Yeah. That's deep. It's deep. And it's important for us to do or try to do. Yeah. So that you can heal. So you can heal and be the best version of yourself. I really hate that I'm doing it so late in life. It is something that I would encourage you wherever you are in life. Like, this is, you know, not a closer or anything, but I'm just saying to you now that if you have problems and issues that you know that you have not dealt with, and you are not married yet, make sure that you deal with them first. Absolutely. If you're in a relationship or even in marriage, you got to deal with that stuff, or it's going to come out and manifest and tear you apart. It's two people. It's not just you with the issues. It might be their trauma as well. And then, God forbid, you start a family. Exactly. Now you're bringing people that didn't even ask to be here into the mess.
Mhm.
So you gotta deal with it.
You gotta be
It's
healed.
so important.
And trace it. So, over the past, year or so, for me, it's been like, okay, Melissa, you got some issues that you need to deal with. You need counseling. So you need to go back and start, I have, through my insurance, I've gone back and said, okay, I need a counselor to deal with these specific things so that I can heal.
Absolutely.
And so that I can grow from them and be a better person. And it's never too late. It's never too late.
And I just want to say this as well, and this is not a closer, but I thank God for the internet, okay? Because like Melissa said, when our parents were younger, they have their childhood traumas, but, childhood trauma probably was not even a word or a phrase that existed. They didn't have these same resources. And, some people say, well, I don't have health insurance, or I can't go and see a counselor. I'm going to need you to get on YouTube University. It's a beautiful place. Pray before you do it so that the Lord can lead you to what to look at. But there are so many resources just on the internet, just on YouTube, that can help you figure out what you got going on, and how to heal. I mean, it's a start, you know what I'm saying? So, definitely going to counseling. I push and promote that.
Yes.
Definitely, talking to God, because He is a healer.
Yes.
But also, if you can't get to a counselor, you can do some research.
Yeah.
There are books that are out, and at the end of the second podcast, we're going to leave some links. We're going to leave the link to the ACEs test.
Yes.
So you can take it and see how many, hopefully none, but if you have some childhood trauma traumatic experiences, you can see what your score is. There is a book that Oprah put out. I can't think of the name of it right now. It escapes me, but it's a powerful book. It's called What Happened to You?
Yeah.
Not what's wrong with you, what happened. And the book is really about, when we meet people and you be like, man, she got a stank attitude, or what is wrong with this person? I'm telling you, you could probably trace it back to some childhood trauma. And when we get to understand people's stories, we have empathy and compassion. We see them in a different light.
Yes.
We see them as human. A lot of times we connect because they're like, oh, this happened to you. Well, this happened to me. I understand why you're that way.
Yes.
So this topic, y'all, I mean, we're going on and on, but it's so important. It's so important. There, someone said that childhood trauma, or not dealing with childhood trauma, is like the biggest public health threat to society. Literally.
We are not perfect, and we all need a savior. I wish someone would have reached out to me and said, hey, Melissa, are you all right? Are you okay? Even as an adult. And we have to take the time to care about people and our family members. I hope that this encouraged you and helped you to take that step to deal with your trauma or your inner child experiences in life, to even help you cope and to be a better person, today. I hope that my story is here to help you guys as you grow and look into your childhood experiences, and to help you to be a better person, like we're all trying to be today. And so next week we're going to talk about Crystal. She's going to share with you her experiences. That'll be episode 2.
The same format. I'll tell you about my trauma. I took the ACEs test, and 4 of those categories were applicable to my life. And things that I've been through. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you guys, and really concentrating on how those things have spilled over into my adult life. And I am, fighting for my life to just be better, to be different, to be the woman that God has called me to be the mother and the wife, and sister, and everything that my family needs me to be, So please come back for that. We thank you so much for just tuning in. We've only had 2 episodes, but we're silly girls, and so this is not your typical normal podcast from us. So I mean, do you got a joke or something for them?
I don't. Let me see what I got.
Right. We gonna see if we can find a joke for y'all or something, just to give y'all a little laugh. But
I don't have none.
You don't got none today?
I got none today. I don't have any jokes today.
All right, next time, maybe we'll open up with a joke or something like that. But we do appreciate you guys for stopping by. Want you to hit like if you saw something that you like. Please share it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please hit the notification bell so that you can get those reminders when we drop various things. Please follow us on our social media pages. That would be Here For It Podcast on Instagram, and we do now have a Facebook page. Also, our podcast, the audio version of it, will be streaming very soon. But please keep coming back. Please keep sharing. And we will see you guys next week, right?
All right. See you next week. I hope you're here for it.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.